All right. The question of the day for the Colorado Avalanche is, are you new school or are you old school? And does it even matter when it comes to protecting your superstars? We watched Cale Makar get cheap-shotted in the back of the head the other night by Blake Coleman. There was a minor penalty assessed, but there was little to no response from the Colorado Avalanche on the play. If you follow me, you know how I usually take these things, but you might be surprised by my answer on this one. I'm going to let you take this one first because I know you're going to give us the old school side of it.
Well, the old school side of it obviously would have been a brawl. That's not, whatever. I'm not. We talked about it after the game. You know my take on this. I am old school when it comes down to that. Are my takes like crazy old school? No. But it is the best player in the National Hockey League, arguably. And whether you like it or not, I understand Coleman, and I respect Coleman in the sense that Cale gives him the reverse shot there. I mean, to me, that's a legal play. I don't think there was a penalty there from Cale. That's me. He might have thought it that different, Coleman. And he gets right back up and comes at him and, first of all, whacks him and then punches him. And on the side of the head, and where I don't think Gabe expected it, to be honest with you, because guys like that usually have the respect from the rest of the league because that if you touch those guys, right, and Cale's not a dirty player, and then all of a sudden someone's going to come at you or whatever it was. So yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like the response, and I told you I didn't like the response in many ways. I didn't like that they didn't score on the power play to make him pay, make him look dumb for that play. They didn't respond in that sense. I'm not saying that go and take penalties, but my take on it is penalties that you take when you're going to the rescue of the best player in the National Hockey League. Usually you kill them. That's usually the ones you kill. You're going to get the puck in your net when it's a useless fourth line penalty in the offensive zone. Then usually the puck's in your net. I get that. So I didn't like it. Then again, if you put yourself in the circumstances of the game, the Avalanche were not to take anything away from the Calgary Flames that are fighting for their lives at that time and to stay alive. And the Avalanche were not really invested in the game. Their emotion part of the game was not there. And I think that play in particular just kind of sums up a little bit the way the Avalanche were. They were just kind of a laissez-faire attitude, and I'll play my game, and we're not going anywhere in the standings, and this is where I'm at. And I think that was the response from Bednar as well after the game, saying he didn't like the game from his team. But I wish something would have been done. I'm not for fighting. I'm not for violence. Sometimes is you just kind of show a little bit of emotion, show a little bit of you're there. Do you go an eye for an eye and then, take a good player for Calgary? I don't know. Huberdeau, you know what I mean? But then you got to say something said on the ice. I don't know. And then do you kind of go after Huberdeau or go out? It's kind of easy when I say go after, I'm not saying that you have to get suspended or do something to get a penalty, but you can actually just show up and show that you got something going and maybe to get a response from your team. But I didn't see it. Is it the end of the world? No. Did I like to see that? No, I did not like to see that. Cale Makar, it deserves a little bit more due with the players' respect. Cale Makar on his team, absolutely. But like I said, I didn't really see a response, and that kind of had me worried a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
I wish it wasn't necessary. That's where I'm at with this. Is I wish it wasn't necessary. I wish we lived in a world where it wasn't necessary. Because, look. Yes, Blake Coleman got a 2-minute minor for that. I'm sorry. That should have been a major and arguably a suspension. The NHL has spent the last 4, 5, 6 years desperately trying to get blindside hits to the head out of the game, and that's exactly what Blake Coleman just did to Cale Makar. It's the exact type of thing that the NHL has tried to remove from the game because they're terrified of it ruining people's careers, because it has. It's ruined many NHL players' careers over the last 2 decades, and calling that a minor is disappointing to me, and it's even more disappointing after what we've seen over the last, frankly, years. 2 weeks ago, Cale Makar got a cross-check to the face that wasn't even a penalty, wasn't even reviewed for a suspension. There are multiple other injuries or injury-type plays where the refs have failed to protect the players of the NHL, going all the way back to years ago when Jeff Carter elbowed Cale Makar in the head. They're not protecting the players. And if the referees are not protecting the players, then the players have to protect and police themselves. That's the reality of the world that we live in. If the refs aren't going to do it, then you're asking for players to start brawls. You're asking for players to not tolerate stuff like that because it is Cale Makar. Because you cannot do that to the best players on the planet. The players have to step up and not let that happen. If it's not the referees, if it's not the league, if it's not anyone else, it's on the players then to do it. So as much as I don't want to do it, you have to at a certain point. You have to just live in this world where, okay, we can't let this keep happening. The league clearly doesn't care, so we're going to care about it. And at a certain point, yeah, you're going to have to jump a guy. That's just the reality.
I like your take. I mean, I think it's fairly said. But there's parts of me that it's hard to, and I know I live in a different era. Sorry, I played in a different era. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry. We live in a different era nowadays. It's a different game. And I think the NHL is so much better and so much faster and so much skilled. But I think there's still an element of, protecting your skilled players. And, I just didn't like the move. I didn't like the hit. And for some reason, like I said, my take might be old because it's an old school take, but I didn't like the response. Whatever the response means, it can mean many different things. Engaged into a fight. It could make him pay on the power play. It could be, go and bother their top players or their goalie and let someone come at you. You know what I mean? And say, oh, well, you don't mess around with Makar, then come mess around with me or whatever it is. It's a team game. It's different than if it was tennis or soccer, not soccer, but golf. You know what I mean? Like it's a team game. And I think the pack of wolves mentality is important. And I'm not saying the Avalanche are soft. I'm saying I think they were a victim of circumstances I felt where they were at in the game, where I don't think they were really emotionally vested in the game.
Sure. But they were certainly invested in that Dallas game.
Oh, for sure.
Got cross-checked in the head there.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Or even like Wedgwood, right? When he got ran into. And
they did come back and win that game. So, fair enough.
Yeah. Stuff like that,
Let me throw some stats at you because that's what I do here. The NHL this season is currently experiencing the lowest penalties per game called in league history. There have never been fewer penalties called ever in the NHL. And there's the lowest amount of penalties called or rather, it is a significant drop in penalties called from the last 2 years, where the penalties had been the highest they've been called in about a decade. What's going on here? Like, are players playing cleaner? Really? Are we really going to make that argument with the plays we've seen with dudes getting hit in the head and guys getting their knees blown up and all of this stuff? Are players really playing cleaner, or has the refs just reduced the penalty calls despite the plays still happening?
I think guys get smarter over the years. They do, you know what I mean? And they're brought up in that environment too, when they were little, to juniors, to college, to now. Guys are so fast and skilled. But yeah, somehow, I don't think you should be able to see what you just said, which I'm shocked because I didn't know that this is, trending that way. Because for me, this game is so fast and guys are so big and physical in the sense that, they're specimens. Like, you should see a little bit more infractions than less, you know what I mean, from over the years. So, I'm shocked a little bit at your stat there, to be honest. For me, then it doesn't add up. There should be more penalties than there has been then. You know what I mean? So I don't think it should be going the other way by any means. Yeah.
If you're not calling them, like I said, the players are going to start policing each other, or they're going to start taking advantage of it, like we've seen happen to Cale Makar a couple of times over the other weeks. So something's going to change, whether it's the Avs punching people or the refs blowing the whistles, one way or another. Playoffs, it's only going to get grittier. We'll have to see what happens there. Make sure you keep following us here at DNVR Sports.